It was really fascinating. It was almost like an instant deliverance or out of my depression because the reason why I was basically depressed was because I didn't see a purpose for myself and I didn't see meaning in life. And I was thinking, okay, we're all going to die. But since that voice kind of countered my thoughts, telling me that, hey, come home and I will show you that your life has a purpose. I was like, okay, I will follow you and I want you to show me what that purpose is. So that immediately like switched my focus from the depressive thoughts to okay, what is out there for me? What is prepared for me? And yeah, ever since I just kept following this light into more and more experiences and life, yeah, life achievements and everything.
This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney Ann Jenkins. Hello, and welcome to the 83rd episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. Passionate about creative arts and entertainment since early childhood, and growing up in Switzerland with African roots, Daniel Caleb successfully followed his dream of being a professional athlete before his first major international competition. An inflicted knee injury destroyed his hopes of inspiring people to discover their gifts and live their dreams. This moment of desperation led Caleb to explore his other creative veins, such as fashion, where he worked with renowned brands as a fashion model. Despite the offered glory, Caleb could not align his own values with those of the fashion industry, and therefore refused to pursue further projects that did not serve a higher purpose. Today, Daniel Caleb is the founder of Transfigured Universe, which teaches people how to live a heavenly life. It aims to inspire people from all walks of life to rise above the status quo by simply daring to live their dreams, being transformed into their heavenly version, and having fun while changing the world. I found Daniel and his story incredibly inspirational, and he's full of courage and wisdom and resilience, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. Here is Daniel Caleb. So my podcast is about following your inner voice and your authenticity. And I feel like you probably have made discoveries about this in yourself along the way of your path of life as you're helping people access that part of themselves. But in order for you to be able to do that and guide people, you had to go through a lot yourself in order to get there. So one of the first things that I like to ask is, when is the first time that you realized that you had this inner intuitive, authentic voice of your own and you were able to recognize it as something that you could follow?
I would say when I had that first notch of my inner voice, not that I could follow, but I realized it was my inner voice, was around 13 years old, but it was rather a call to rebellion. And at the time when that happened, like I saw it as a rebellion, but later on, with more understanding and maturity, I understood that that was already my inner voice guiding me. And that led me actually to leave my church at the time. And that happened at 13 years old because I was brought to church by my mom since early childhood. And that was just customs. Like every Sunday, we would go to church and everything. And I really grew up in that environment. And then one day at 13 years old, that's where I started to actually grasp what was going on. And I started to listen to the preachings and observing my surroundings. And I noticed that the leaders at church would preach one thing and do another thing. And that was like very prevalent throughout like different weeks and months even, until like I just couldn't take it anymore because I was genuinely interested to develop my spirituality and everything. And that's just like disconnected me from this yeah, religion and everything. And yeah, so that was, I guess, my first call where I listened to that urge or frustration that I had at the time. And then, like later on, there were other iterations where I could more consciously follow the lead of my inner voice without having to be frustrated to do something.
Can you talk a little bit about your upbringing, about where you grew up and how that affected your belief system?
Yeah, so I was brought up in Switzerland. I was born in Zurich, Switzerland, to African parents, but I then got early on adopted to a Swiss father and also was stayed with my African mom. So we had like a very multicultural environment, and we had like a decent life in the sense where we weren't lacking anything, but we weren't also swimming in abundance. That was kind of the environment that I was brought in. After all, like I'm very grateful for my parents and the way that I was brought up, but there were also some things that were challenging or not ideal, the way that I was educated, or also the way that our parents dealt with us. For example, my father, that was my adopted stepfather, had some alcohol issues, for example, back in the days. And yeah, so we would be beaten up and things like that. And so I would have this fear because so he was just to give you guys some context, he was a professional chef. So he was cooking, and he would always come back home late because the restaurant would close at midnight, and then you have to clean up, and then you come back very late. And sometimes, so when he would come back after work, he would drink first after his shift and then come back home drunk. And obviously, as little kids, we were already sleeping at these hours. And sometimes he would just storm into the door, enraged basically, and yeah, wake up us from our sleep, and then also like, yeah, hit us or whatever was the order of the day. And I'm just explaining this to say that I think these were my early moments where I developed a heightened sensitivity of my surroundings and what was going on around me and within me, and also trying to sense people, and yeah, being able to tell when my father was angry or when he was drunk, when something was about to happen. So I really developed that sensibility already early on.
Yeah, absolutely. You had to be for your own like safety and survival, it sounds like. You said he was a professional chef. Would he cook for you at home, or was that something that he only did at a restaurant?
Would also cook for us at home. Yeah, in that
Yeah.
sense, we were quite blessed. Yeah.
Excellent. So, with your African heritage, did you feel like any sort of spirituality from that part of yourself within you?
Definitely, definitely. So I'm originally from Congo, DRC, so Congo Kinshasa, the Belgian Congo, as they would say. And yeah, so Africa as a continent, as a whole, has this deep sense of spirituality and tribes and ancestors and things like that. And they are very um, honorable towards these practices, etc. And I think, yeah, from my heritage, that's something that was also given to me, just by virtue or by DNA, definitely. For my mom specifically in our household, it was through the religion of Christianity that the spirituality was expressed. But that doesn't mean that this African culture or the spiritual heritage wasn't also there. So she would like share stories with us that she experienced when she was still in Congo. And so basically, spiritual experiences that might be seeing auras or spirits and things like that. So that's something that I grew up with. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So at 13, you recognized that like this path that you were a part of like wasn't right for you. It didn't feel like it resonated with you. What happened after that as far as like where your life went?
Yeah, so it was quite early on. So I was still at school. I had some obligations like that that I still needed to go through. But for me, that was really like a wake-up call to consciousness that I experienced at 13 years old. And as I said, that's where I started to go through life consciously, I guess. And the first reaction of that consciousness was to leave behind the church that I was at because I got conscious and aware of what was happening. And I took that same awareness or consciousness into the rest of my life. So, as I was saying, I was going to school, and in Switzerland, at that age, for example, you have to slowly decide your life path and your career path. And they would have social workers coming to school that basically guide you, right? So they do an assessment with you. You have some multiple choice, some personality tests and stuff like that. Everything gets evaluated, and then they give you your result, and then you have basically a career coach that suggests your career path to you. And when it was my turn, so I got called into the office of the coach, and we were sitting there, and they would say, "Oh yeah, Daniel, okay, we have seen you have these kinds of grades, these are your passions, etc. I think the best that you can do in life for you to have the best chances to do something is to work in construction." And that's something that I never thought about. And I was kind of smart, I had good grades, and then I understood that also to be connected to racism, whereas like they would just label you as something and someone, and they wouldn't see more in you. And that's where I also rejected the education system that was around 15 years old. And the same also happened with sports because I also was a professional athlete where I understood that entertainment, sports world to be just performance based and performance driven. And basically, so I was playing soccer. And whenever I would score goals and I would perform well, everybody was my friend, everybody was happy, the coaches were happy with you. If that didn't happen, you would like experience the opposite. And that's where I also had that sensation, hey, if I truly want to be happy and fulfilled, I can't rely on the professional athlete path because I already understood that I was basically just a product or something, you know? And so at 15, then I had this mental breakdown that was literally like a deep depression because I experienced for me personally, the failure of a religion, the failure of the education system, and the failure of the sports famous celebrity world and all of that. And I was like, okay, I'm 15 years old. I have my entire life in front of me, but I kind of already saw through the reality of the world and where these paths lead me to. And I was sincerely contemplating suicide. And it wasn't out of a um, desperate state in that sense. Yes, obviously it was, but what I mean by that is it was a rational, logical conclusion because I was like, okay, at the end of the day, that's my reasoning back then. At the end of the day, everybody's going to die, and that's just a fact. And then, why then should I work for 40 years until I'm retiring at 65, and then I have to die anyways, but I also have to struggle for the years in between. So why not just end my life now and I don't have to struggle in between? So that was literally my logical, rational thought process. And these dark days went on for about 3 days. As far as I can remember, I was in my room at my parents' house, and I put down like the windows. Everything was dark. I didn't go out, and I was battling with these thoughts and really contemplating what should I really do. And we lived on the fourth floor, and I was contemplating to just jump out of the window. Basically, that's what I was contemplating to do. And then I had this experience where on the third day, I had like a light coming into my room. And it was like a vision or real, but like I wasn't sleeping. So it was like a tangible
Yeah.
experience that I had. And that light would tell me, my son, it is time to come home, and then I will show you that your life has a purpose and that there is life after death. So these are the words that I heard. But the light that invaded my room was so powerful, was so awe-inspiring that like you couldn't move basically. And I was just like in awe of this. And obviously, this experience was so strong that I hearkened to these words. And that's where, like, let's say my conscious spiritual growth journey really, really happens based on that encounter that I had.
Wow. Yeah. So, so how did that change? Did you snap out of your depression like right away after that? Or what did, yeah, what happened after that?
It was really fascinating. It was almost like an instant deliverance or out of my depression because the reason why I was basically depressed was because I didn't see a purpose for myself and I didn't see meaning in life. And I was thinking, okay, we're all going to die. But since that voice kind of countered my thoughts, telling me that, hey, come home and I will show you that your life has a purpose, I was like, okay, I will follow you and I want you to show me what that purpose is, you know? So that immediately like switched my focus from the depressive thoughts to okay, what is out there for me, what is prepared for me, you know. And yeah, ever since I just kept following this light into more and more experiences and life, yeah, life achievements and everything.
And that happened when you were 15, right?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So at what point did you leave your family home? Did
Yeah,
you?
that's very interesting. It was within the same year, like at 16 latest, I was out of the house because basically, so I was saying before that I was on my path to become a professional soccer player. So I was already playing at the club that was like the elite youth, you know, the ones that get prepared for a professional career. So I wasn't professional yet, but I was like in the upcoming teams. And then at 16, basically my life dream, so to speak, as a child was to become a professional football player and or soccer player, and that came true at 16 after this experience.
Wow.
And I understood that realization or manifestation to be a result of the encounter that I had, because I could feel how my career was kind of stuck and all of that, and I wasn't sure if I really should proceed with it. But once I had that encounter, I was able to sign my first professional contract at 16 years old, which also took me out of my parents' house to Italy. So that was my first time out of the house of my parents and also relocated to a new country that I didn't know before. And yeah, that's I'm connecting that to that encounter with the lights that I had.
Yeah. How did Italy affect you? Because like I've been to Italy and I've lived there briefly, and it my heart part of it is there still. But how did that affect you as a 16-year-old and moving out of your family home and sort of like starting fresh? What was that experience like?
It was a full experience, if I can say it like that. Like all the spectrum was covered from the most positive to the most negative, I can say. On one hand, it was obviously very exciting. It was a new adventure. I was just like living my dreams basically because I dreamed about becoming that since early on, and that happened. So all of that was very exciting. I was able to live from my career as well. So I was like 100% focused on on soccer. And then on the other hand, it was also tough because that was my first time away from my parents and also living abroad. So I had nobody around that I knew. And since I was a professional, I played with adults. So I'm like in my teens, but I would play against 30-year-old men, like muscular, bearded, and everything. So I had to fight my battles on the pitch with them. And there were also some language barriers at first, so I had to learn Italian, which I've then done within a couple of months, but obviously still in the beginning, like it was challenging.
Mhm.
And then also the reality of racism that I also experienced there, and especially in the sports world. So you can imagine, like we had, for example, a stadium that had a capacity of 20,000 people, and yeah, like if the fans of the other team uh, don't like you, obviously they don't like you, then they would just shout at you, they would shout names and things like that. So I experienced a bunch of that as well. But what was the most hurtful was I also experienced that within my own team, where there was just jealousy and things like that by the nature of the competition that we had within the team. And yeah, like there was no mercy, no compassion, no nothing. And I was basically, yeah, they were trying to get at me.
Mm. So how long were you able to stay within the football? How long was your career?
In total, so the professional career lasted for 3 years. 1 year in Italy, 1 year in the UK, and then 1 year I was basically trying to find a new team, but that hasn't worked out.
All right. Going forward, what have you learned from like that experience? How did that move you to your next step?
Yeah, maybe what would be important to mention also would be that I had to end my sports career because of an inflicted injury by a so-called team colleague. So it wasn't by choice that I stopped to play soccer, but that injury got inflicted onto me during a training session in Italy, and I never recovered from that injury. Had multiple surgeries in Switzerland, and after the second surgery, so I had some relapses after the surgeries, and then just right before I needed to do the third surgery, the doctor actually admitted to me that there were mistakes that he has made during the first two surgeries, and that's why I kept like having the same problems. And he put me in front of a decision saying, hey, you can have a third surgery and then you will be out of order for the next 12 months. You can't move, you can't walk, you can't run, nothing. And then you would have to do the rehab after that, or you don't do the third surgery, and then your career ends, and that's it. And yeah, on top of that, he was actually laughing at me. And yeah, it was just a very, I can't even say traumatizing experience. It's even beyond. But that's basically I just felt that I wasn't meant to go back to the sports world. So I made that choice. I didn't make a first surgery, and I was obviously very distressed and so on and so forth. But this decision led me to a phase of healing, where my injury actually got healed supernaturally without the intervention of a doctor, and it was like an agreement with the divine, or I don't know how to call it, where I made up my minds to not go back, and I got healed. But I didn't go back because I was healed, but I was healed for a different purpose. But that's where now I had to deeply go within myself and question why I'm truly here. Because remember, like I wanted to take my life a few years back because I didn't have a purpose. And now what I thought was my purpose was taken away again. And that's where this experience helped me to basically transcend myself and transcend my identity and not be stuck or label myself as a soccer player. And if that's taken away from me, I'm nobody. So that experience helped me realize that we are actually limitless as human beings. And what we do is simply what we do or how we choose to express ourselves. And this experience truly cemented that for me, where yeah, later on, I could just do whatever came to my mind. I could create it. I could do so many different things because I wasn't attached to what I was doing anymore, not in the same way as before.
Yeah. Did you have people that you could lean on or like a support system of people that you could go to who helped you process this experience, or were you kind of like on your own?
I was kind of on my own, but that doesn't mean that I didn't get help from other people, in the sense where like I would read books, I would listen to motivational speakers, I would like find resources on the internet. And so, yeah, it would be very wrong for me to say that I did it all by myself in that sense. Like maybe physically speaking, yes, there weren't many people around. I also had hard times to talk to my family about all of these things because they weren't on board in the first place. And obviously, all I received was judgment. We told you you should have just stuck to school and studies. So I couldn't go back there. But yeah, I had to wrestle with it within myself, with God, because that's the light that I saw. So that's the things that I expected from was from the light, right? Because they sold me on this idea that there is a purpose. So I'm holding them accountable. But yeah, I was just reading books, listening to speakers and things like that. I also relocated to a foreign country where I could just like start new for some time, and that really helped to settle within this new reality, kind of.
Yeah. What country did you move to?
Australia.
Wow. Okay. All right. After your healing process and like in Australia, how did you find your purpose again?
Yeah, so I guess today I would define my purpose as a limitless creator that creates things or that brings things into existence based on my natural gifts and talents, and based on the desires and passions that I have. So this is what how I would describe my purpose today, and how that looked like right after that transition redefinition moment that I had, was that I became an international fashion model because I had a passion for fashion as well. And since I understood that I wasn't tied or to a label, I could simply go with my heart and feel what was right at the moment. And that's where I literally just followed my heart, and the doors started opening, and I was able to venture into the fashion world as a model.
So you were in a spotlight in another way, as similar to the way that you were when you were a professional athlete, right? And had people like looking at you. Did you feel more comfortable and more grounded in yourself during that time than you did in the sports world?
Yeah, much more, like much more grounded, much more at peace with myself, much more detached in a healthy way. That definitely helped. Unfortunately, the world hadn't changed. So it was still like on the outside at least, the same craziness and all of that. But from within, like, yeah, I felt very much centered.
Did you experience like the racism as much in Australia than or doing the modeling as you did in the sports world?
So
Or
when I was doing the modeling, I actually went back to Switzerland again. Yeah. And so the modeling then was in Italy and things like that. In terms of racism, it was different. It wasn't necessarily like my race, my background, or the color of my skin, but there it would more be like your sexual orientation and things like that, because the industry has like a certain um, culture, I would call it, where like everybody is a little bit doing the same thing, thinking the same thing, and if you don't do what they do, you are not part of the group, basically. And for me, what was pushed onto me as an idea from my immediate collaborators, that might be brands, photographers or organizers of catwalks, etc., was the idea of homosexuality. And I was a heterosexual man, so attracted to the opposite sex, and that idea wouldn't sit well with them. And that's where you would be experience a boycott, basically, where if you don't agree to their agenda, you're not given opportunities to model, basically.
Yeah. How did you remain authentic to yourself through that experience?
I would say that I tried to go as far as I could, staying grounded, staying true to myself, and also being able to bear the consequences of staying true to myself, just economically speaking. Because again, if you, for me, what it meant to stay true to myself was obviously not doing certain things that they wanted me to do, but it was also missing out on great opportunities and missing out on an income as well. So I did that for as long as that was sustainable to me, where I could like deal with the loss of certain opportunities and benefits. And then I simply decided to step away and to not pursue that path, because like I was basically reaching a crossroad where like they wanted you to make a decision kind of, and I chose against it.
Yeah. So what did you choose?
Well, since I was still passionate about fashion, what I chose was to start my own fashion brand. That seemed like the logical, like,
Yeah.
okay, you don't want me to play in your on your playground, let me create my own. And that's where I yeah, started my own fashion brand.
Fantastic. So you were able to express yourself through your fashion and be authentic in that way.
Yes.
Yeah. And so are you continuing to do that like currently?
Yes, the brand is still here. Yeah, I'm continuing to do that. Very passionate about it still, and yeah, very happy that I also made that choice back then.
Yeah. As far as fashion goes, what is inspiring to you about fashion? And how do you align your authenticity within that?
Mm, I guess for me, fashion, I just got to know about it or experience it in a way where it also helped me to express my authenticity, especially after having lost my first identity that I clings to, which was a professional athlete. And when I was in this phase of reconsideration of who I am, my identity, my purpose, and everything, and where I got the sense where I could just, yeah, listen to the inner voice as we are talking about and follow my heart. That's where I felt that desire to simply be myself and express myself. And that's where I got into fashion. So it is a passion of mine, but at the same time, I think spiritually speaking, it makes sense in the sense where fashion is a tool that allows you to give yourself expression in a physical way. So basically, I think I also used it a little bit as a filter to express what was going on the inside of me, to then express it through clothes, through colors, through texture, and things like that. So, yeah, for some, maybe fashion might be a superficial aspect because it's just, yeah, physical and clothes and stuff like that. And I get that totally. But for me, it was really like a spiritual response to a transformation that happened on the inside, I would say, to really express that physically and yeah, give my spirit a visual expression, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have a really great friend who is a fashion designer in Turkey, and she struggles a lot with the commercialization of fashion and how it can sort of create a divide among people as far as like status. But I think it's just like any other art form. What is the value of art versus entertainment? Or how do you even quantify the value of art? Because what you were doing like is art, right? So
Definitely.
okay, so it seems like your spiritual life is really important to you as far as navigating your next steps of where you're going. So, where are you currently, and how are you helping others? I feel like you have a group that you are heading. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so besides the fashion brand, together with my wife, we founded the Transfigured Universe last year. And that's basically, well, it's an organization, but within that organization, we also have a community where like-minded people come together to exactly explore the spiritual reality of life, and also to we call it to live heaven on earth. So basically, you visualize this ideal life that you want in all areas of your life, and then together, like we create these strategies of how to really make that happen, and how to materialize what we feel and what we see. So that's really the purpose of the organization. And yeah, at the bigger scale, I would say that what's also really important to us, it's because, yeah, we can talk about individually inspiring people and living heaven on earth and all of that. But at the same time, it's like there are certain limits, and it's literally based on my experience where maybe like um, when I was a fashion model within myself, I was at peace. I was feeling these heavenly sensations that I would describe with peace and love and joy. Like I would feel these things within me as I was modeling, but my environment wouldn't reflect that because the reality of the world is in conflict with that. So if I was just going to stay in heaven within myself, like that conflict would forever be there. So with our organization, we also aim to make an impact or to influence the world, where we can bring this culture to the marketplace, to the world, to different industries, to different environments, and yeah, really share that. And the best way we have found to do this is really also through this community, where we connect like-minded people together, because yeah, unity is very important in that, because you can't do it alone. And then we also grow together, where we collect, we listen to our intuition, we grow spiritually, we grow in revelation and understanding, and then based on that, we sit together as well, and find projects that we can collaborate on or that we can create together to provide an alternative to the world, and make it basically appealing to them to, yeah, live a heavenly lifestyle or from a heavenly state of being. So this is kind of what the community combines. So you can imagine, yeah, for example, I gave my personal example of the fashion brand, but within the community, you may have different artists of different kinds, and alone they could do something, but together we can do so much more. And that's where they collaborate. Maybe they create a brand or a collaboration where they can bring that project to the marketplace and inspire that sphere that they find themselves in.
That's fantastic. It's making effect from like the inside out, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So how can people join your group or your community?
Mm. So basically, we have the community is hosted on School. So there is a community platform called School, and if you type in Transfigured Universe, you will find it there. Or other than that, like if people reach out to me on Instagram and ask me in the DMs, I'm also more than happy to share all the details with them. And the handle would be at Daniel Timothy Caleb.
Okay, great. I will add those into the show notes so people can click on it really easy.
Thank you so much.
I just also want to acknowledge the way that you told your story. You make it sound so easy, going from situation to situation, but that takes a lot of courage. And I just want to like give you credit for that. Like, you're really doing the work. So,
Thank you so much. It's really kind, and it's true that it's not easy, like because when I was going through these things at the time, like yeah, it's you question yourself and all of that. And yeah, I just kept trusting the light, or trusting my inner voice, as you would say. And yeah, I guess I'm just a witness that, yeah, if you do trust your inner voice, there is the end of the tunnel where you come out and it's brighter on the other side.
Absolutely. So I have one last question that I usually ask to sort of wrap everything up. And it can be like a short answer, and sometimes it will go take us on another tangent. But the question is, if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
My inner voice had a billboard. What would it say to the world? Hmm, that's an intriguing question.
You can take your time.
Yeah, what I just intuitively feel, I think it would be heaven on earth is real and you can access it right now.
Mm, okay, that's a good one.
Mm,
Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and your wisdom. I think it'll be really inspiring for a lot of people.
Thank you so much for having me with me. I really appreciated it.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.